right, we got a caller on the line on the Vets Chat Show. This is
Yes.
Trent Love, your host. Who am I speaking with?
You're speaking to Wesley Poriotis, chairman of Veterans Across America.
All right, welcome, Wesley. Now, just to give you a heads up, everybody that's in the audience, we are speaking to the same gentleman that I gave the wonderful introduction to about Veterans Across America in terms of the programs. I just gave a brief overview of the work that they've been doing with helping veterans get jobs, mentoring, and also some of your new initiatives. And Wesley is a champion. Wesley is a champion and friend to the veteran community, and I'd like him to introduce a little bit about himself and his background, and we'll talk about the programs at Veterans Across America.
Well, Trent, I've taken your last name and embedded it in our championing for veterans because it is a matter of love. It certainly isn't a matter of profit.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. For those who are listening, and for those veterans who are aspiring to access quality employment, I feel for them because it's such a tough road to hoe. People don't hire resumes, and many of the veterans who come through us just unfortunately send out hundreds and hundreds of resumes to a very numbing silence because, they've been taught to translate their military occupational specialties into the applicable civilian jobs, and we all know, and the people who create these programs know, that you get a job through who you know, not what you know. And I guess after 15 years of trying to work the traditional paths to help veterans, we realized if you could formalize the who you know approach to getting a job and provide a network to a veteran to open up professional and personal networks from a champion mentor. If you could match a veteran one-on-one with someone who had a small business to open up their suppliers, their vendors, their professional relationships, then you could open up a whole imagination and buffet of choices that historically isn't within the wheelhouse or the mindset of the veteran who may be thinking a narrowly constrained area. Plus, a lot of these young veterans and mid-level veterans, they don't want to do what they did in the military. They want something different. And, if they were combat or if they were infantry, many of the applicable civilian arenas just do not embrace them. So, forgive that long-winded introduction. We did a study for the Joint Chiefs of Staff that showed the terrible problem of employment for military when they transitioned. I think, Trent, as Mark Twain is often quoted as saying, there are lies, there are more lies, and then there are statistics. And
Absolutely.
the statistics of underemployment and unemployment just don't reflect, especially our veterans of color at the enlisted level who are in the inner cities by the hundreds, if not thousands, who have sent out 400 and 500 and 600 resumes and have gotten little or no response. We need to harness them. And I think it's a moral obligation. I believe we as Americans have to go beyond paying lip service to it and do something. And that's what we've been doing for almost 20 years, and I'm just glad to be on your show.
Well, wonderful, and I thank and salute you for your efforts in trying to bridge the gaps and connect the dots, because there are a lot of gaps, there are a lot of holes, and for every statistic that you read, and I can definitely attest to within the underserved communities, those numbers are even more. For example, I'll read and have Mr. Poriotis respond to some of these veteran employment challenges, and we could get more into the need for mentoring, but here's some of the information that I'll read that was published from Prudential, a study, and I'm sure Mr. Poriotis has done his research and he can compare and contrast some of these summary findings. For example, I'll read 8 of them, and then I'll let Mr. Poriotis respond to them. Here's one that says, 2/3 of veterans experienced a difficult transition from military to civilian life. Number 2, veterans name finding a job as their greatest challenge in transitioning, with transferring military skills to a civilian environment a major hurdle. Number 3, Most feel their military service is respected by employers, but 3 in 5 veterans express concerns about cultural barriers. Number 4, 2/3 say that they are facing a health challenge as a result of their military service. Number 5, not all veterans receive support or training for transitioning to the civilian workforce. Number 6, about 1 in 5 veterans surveyed are unemployed or currently seeking employment. Number 7, job seekers report using multiple resources for trying to find employment, but show great interest in additional tools. And last but not least, number 8, there are high expectations for employer-provided support programs for veterans. Mr. Poriotis, would you like to respond and any of your findings and discussions since you've been doing this for oh so long, 20 years?
Yes, it's very comprehensive. I think aside from a handful of corporations, there is more lip service because, you know, the veteran is told they have leadership, discipline, program and project management skills, team building. So they come out with their chest filled with pride. It's going to be easy, and then they hit the stone wall of the young staffing manager who's trying to put a round peg in a round hole, and their skills don't match. And I think, quick answer to your question is, I think 9 out of 10 are superb. The last one about a great promise for employer-supported programs, I mean, it's more promise than it is reality yet. I think it's going to be, unfortunately, another decade before the DNA of the military is embedded fully into the corporate mosaic and the corporate psyche. Very similar to the civil rights movement. I think there was lip service in the 60s, 70s, and 80s for corporate employment of folks of color until 1990-91, until the Hudson think tank study showed corporations were going to lose market share until they began to balance their slates of management. They didn't do much. It took a lot of years of lip service, and I think the same thing is true here. I do think that companies will say, gosh, we want military, we want to hire military. But when it comes down to the reality, when the military go through that long-winded, deselective process, then they are, negated from opportunity. Companies, I mean, there is one company that I think has sort of set the standard, and that's J.P. Morgan Chase, because they vowed to hire 100,000 veterans. They're hiring enlisted. They're not just hiring the young, attractive officers with the academy and West Point backgrounds. The 28, 29-year-old West Point or Annapolis graduate or Air Force Academy graduate, they even have difficulty. So what do you say to an E5 or E6 who has high school background, maybe a year of college, and has been in combat and infantry? A job has to be created for them. And I will just forgive my long-windedness here, but if you think about it,
we're doing great on time. Take as much as you need. This is
important. If you think about it, if you go back 50, 60 years, there was no resume. The GI came back from World War II. Somebody introduced him to a small, business, a trade business or blue-collar business, whatever it was, lumber yard, gas station, got a job at the bottom, and that created the middle class, that created the greatest generation because somebody gave them a shot. Right now, for the enlisted service person especially if they're in the inner city, a woman or a man of color, Latino, African American, or other, they don't know anyone. There is no small business that's going to reach out to them. It's a different economy. So the economy's tough. Their backgrounds and skills aren't highly marketable for the most part. And the old days of getting a job through who you know have died. It's now put your resume together and get it out to 200. We have people who've sent out as many as 1,500 resumes. And without somebody taking them under their wing, opening up their network aggressively, and positioning veteran A to business person B, It's almost like this, Trent. You know, I have a business. If I take a veteran under my wing, I could call John or Jane and say, listen, you know, we hang out together. Our families go out together. We've been doing business for 15 years. If you don't see this young E5 and do me a favor to see what you can do for them, I'm really not going to pick up the tab again. You know, I'm being jocular, but is a way to use your networks on behalf of veterans